Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am your host, Brian Scott. Today we're going to explore some channelings from Quo. Quo is a principle of entities from higher densities that we've discussed in previous episodes if you want to get further explanation of who they are. They deal with different spiritual topics, and we've learned a lot so far from what they've taught. Today we're going to discuss love and wisdom and how they relate. This first channeling came from March 26 of 2016. Our question today comes from N in Moscow and concerns the relationship between love and wisdom. Specifically, can wisdom suppress or impede in some way an opening of the green energy center? On one hand, Ra says that love and wisdom do not oppose each other, but rather constitute two sides of the same coin. On the other hand, Ra says that on the negative path, wisdom is accumulated much earlier than on the positive path. Jim channeling, I am Quo, and we greet each of you in love and in light this afternoon. It is our great privilege to be able to speak to you upon your topic of love and wisdom. However, we would first ask that you use your own discrimination for each word that we may utter, for we do not wish to place any stumbling block before you. We do not offer authority, we offer our opinion. We hope that you will find some use in what we have to say. We offer it with love and indeed with light, with both the love and the light or the wisdom about which the query deals this day. We are aware that each here pursues a path of seeking, the opening of the green ray energy center as the primary portion of your journey through the third density illusion. To be able to open the heart in what is called unconditional love, in more than 51% of your thoughts, words, and deeds is considered a harvestable quality or quantity for entities to express love for those about them. My friends, this sounds like a very easy procedure and qualifying level which to meet. However, it takes a certain kind of consciousness and concentration to be able to do this reliably in your daily round of activities. For as you move through the schedules, appointments, and lists that comprise your lives on a day-to-day basis, it is easy to forget the foundation upon which you have built your journey for this life. The mind, in its attempt to order and organize your various lists and appointments, oftentimes seeks efficiency rather than the type of attitude which allows for a room to express the heart, the emotions in general, and to relate in a fashion which is indeed an open-hearted nature. Too easy it is to move rapidly from one item to another, feeling the satisfaction of checking off each item upon the list, and at the day's end, congratulating the self for having done so. And yet, if you look at the lists of your spiritual journey, you will find it is a simpler list, for primary amongst each of your priorities, we feel, is the expression of the heart chakra in a way that embraces the unity of the moment, shall we say. This unity of the moment may involve your spending a good deal of time and honestly sharing emotions with those who may be a portion of your round of lists. You may find it inconvenient, often in the extreme, to take the time that another entity may need in any particular moment of your day. Life is often a messy business. There are hurt feelings, painful memories, doubtful futures, difficult moments in the present that intrude upon the smoothly functioning checking off of lists. In this case, you see what could be described as a battle between love and wisdom, the wisdom of accomplishing your task as you define it within your third density illusion, versus the compassion that is a part of your spiritual journey and which requires reminders throughout the day, much as your list reminds you of your appointments and your schedule. Thus, we would suggest that your third density illusion provides you with a, shall we say, degree of difficulty in accomplishing the activation of the green ray energy center. For more and more, your mechanized, computerized, digitized society requires you to move at increasing speeds in the physical sense, as well as the mental and emotional senses as well. speeds which oftentimes necessitate, or would seem to, the omitting of what may become extraneous details in dealing with others' needs for your listening heart. At this point, the channeling is moved to someone else, and they challenge the channel, as in asking what they come from. And Quo says, I am Quo, and am with this instrument. We would begin our communication through this instrument by thanking this instrument for the challenge which it has offered us, for it is our understanding that we must reassure those who seek our service about our intentions. That is to say, that we come in the name of love, that we come in the name of serving others, and that we do so in all humility. Now, the reason that is appropriate and important for us to pass this challenge is that in your third density illusion, it is not possible to ascertain self-evidentially the intention of those with whom you communicate, for it is rather easy to conceal one's intention in this illusory experience, and you have all developed over the course of your lifetimes powers of discernment by which you judge the quality of the communications which you receive, the quality of the interactions which are offered to you, and make an estimate of the best way to respond. This is all a part of the process which may be called wisdom, and yet the wisest among you may be deceived. And this deception can go very, very deep, because these factors which you use to sort out one intention from another, a good intention from a bad, an open-hearted intention from one which is closed off and selfish, these criteria, we say, can be easily mimicked. And if you allow yourself to judge based upon factors which do not go to the heart of a communication, which do not go to the heart of an offering of another self, then you can very, very easily discover that you are well on the way to a path that does not lead to open heart, but rather to a way of serving the self. These ways of serving the self are, in fact, very many and very clever in the manner in which they are offered to the self. You may see them as temptations, but they are temptations which are wrapped very frequently in an envelope of good intentions, shall we say, such that it can appear to one who engages with others that they are in a fine place with respect to the offering of service, when in reality the service offered is already of the nature of that which primarily seeks to promote hidden interests of the self. Now, over the course of time, interests of these sorts have typically accumulated and collectively go to the makeup of what you think of as yourself, and this functions as a kind of motivator. In fact, in many ways, it is essential to have this motivator. And we almost would say this filtering mechanism in place as a survival mechanism essential for dealing with the complexities of your daily lives. However, the very mechanism which it can seem to be the better part of wisdom to perpetuate and routinely employ is a mechanism which can block your access to open-hearted communication. And therefore, when upon one occasion or another it seems sometimes quite suddenly possible for you to communicate in a way that is unexpected, in a way that is even perhaps unwanted, but as you perceive needed, that it is possible to open your heart to another. This can seem a little bit dangerous. It can seem so far off the expected pattern of interaction that on the whole, it would be wiser not to go there. It would be wiser to remain within the protective parameters of a well-traveled and well-understood way of being in a self, in your social structure, shall we say. If, however, there has been enough work done by the self upon the self in its effort to open the heart, it will begin to seem more and more possible that a little bit of foolishness can be allowed, a little bit of risk can be taken, a little bit of opening can be given to another who seems to be crying out for this opening, that the salve of the heart love may be offered, may be received by the other. It seems like foolishness to open the heart, and therefore it can seem that open-hearted love is in a state of tension with those factors of wisdom, which are essential for self-maintenance and self-preservation. The more you learn to loosen the bounds of wisdom, the more you learn not to limit your conception of who you are by acts of preserving what you have come to think you must preserve in order to be a viable self in the society you enjoy. The more you learn that you do not need to be who you have been trained to think you must be, the less you will be inhibited in the opening of the heart to the other. It seems then that the opening of the heart is a great act of folly, and indeed, my friends, we would suggest to you that it can be precisely this, that when you do open the heart, you do find yourself vulnerable. When you do open the heart, you can put yourself in a position where another may act in such a way as to cause you pain. And when you do open the heart and get catalyst that is of a particularly strong nature, you can find yourself in a position of recoiling back upon yourself, which makes any future opportunity to open the heart all that much more difficult to avail yourself of. So the opening of the heart may well be seen to have a kind of wisdom of its own built into its process, built into its nature. One is like a springtime flower opening on the first days of bright sunshine and warmth, but doing so in a manner which is tentative, which tests the air to see whether there is after all a hint of frost, a hint of danger lurking. But the flower must open to fulfill its destiny, and it must do so without full realization of what the day will bring. And when it finally comes to see that its glory will lie in being fully opened, even if this glory subjects it to the possibility of damage, then it realizes that destiny which is uniquely its own. We cannot tell you, my friends, that you will be safe in every effort you make to engage with those around you from a standpoint of love. We cannot say that your offering of love will be accepted and well received. We cannot say that you will emerge from every interaction you enter with the intention of love in a manner which celebrates the love that has been offered. For you may find that your love is rejected. You may find that those that you have sought to love will not give you love in return. You have a saying amongst your people, it is better to have loved and lost than to not have loved at all. And we find that this is indeed true. But its truth does not neglect the fact that you have loved and lost is to have lost indeed. And so it remains true that it is well to exercise some judgment in guiding your interactions among those around you. It is well to allow this judgment to be imbued with that wisdom which has accumulated as a result of your many past interactions, for it is possible, to quote another of your sayings, to throw your pearls before swine. It is possible to unwisely enter into an interaction with the best of intentions in a way and in a circumstance that in truth offers little opportunity for positive engagement. And so you do well to be aware of those limitations, both within your own person and within your group interactions, that can put a limit to the possible efficacy of open-hearted communication. Even there, however, we would say that it is still always a possibility for you to keep the heart open, even where it is not fully exposed, to keep the heart open, even where you have taken up a posture in relation to those around you, such that those around you will be known not to be able to see that you are being open-hearted in relation to them. There simply are many circumstances in your daily lives where you will be dealing with those who have no intention and no present capacity to engage with your heart to heart, and it is well then to privately wish well these that need to go their own way, to hope that they find what they need to find in order to find their way to the spiritual advancement which they too inevitably seek. Thus we find that it is always a very, very great gift when you're able to address your energies to those of others who do have an interest in engaging with those energies as a part of a process of mutual heart opening. It is always a great gift to find another who can resonate on the same wavelength that you enjoy. And here it is, indeed, not only possible, but highly desirable to open yourself in ways that can seem tremendously foolish. It is desirable when the circumstance offers the promise of sufficient safety for you to avail yourself of this safety and take a chance that you may love freely without stint of reservation, that you may love freely without fear, that you may love freely without holding back in the concern that your love will intrude upon the subjective life of the beloved. For only when your love is offered in this uninhibited way does another have the full advantage of the catalyst which this moment can uniquely provide. It is a great joy which you sometimes are able to discover in the sexual life. It is a very great joy which you are sometimes able to discover in the simple gaiety of friendship. It is a great joy when you are allowed to be of some service to another whose pain or whose suffering or whose sorrow asks for healing, for that healing that can only come through love. Every offering of love is a risk. A risk on the face of it can seem unwise. Wisdom, however, that has taken account of itself will eventually come to realize that perfect wisdom is itself an imperfect thing, for perfect wisdom would counsel that no risk ever be taken. Perfect wisdom would counsel that the odds militate against the possible fruition of open-hearted interaction. And yet, if perfect wisdom always prevailed, that spiritual sustenance, which is the very lifeblood of soul, would be denied. And so, to return to our metaphor, the flower must open, the bud must bloom, despite the risk of frost, despite the rough winds that may soon blow, despite the hungry animal which may happen by and be attracted to the blossom. Folly is not the same thing as love, but in a world which is defined too much by wisdom, it can seem folly to love at all. Therefore, we might say that it is indeed the greater act of wisdom to allow wisdom itself to be curtailed in the face of love. It is never wrong to inquire about the modes in which love may reasonably be expected to have sway in particular kinds of circumstances. It is never an untoward question to ask whether the loved one feels in one's heart would be well received, but there's a moment in which the bubbling up of love from within will not be denied, and a wisdom that counsels it is better not to take a chance, which refuses to allow that expression, is not the greater part of wisdom. Life itself, however, is a chance, and love is its main chance. And so even those who have become wise with the passing of years, with the passing of generations, must realize in the end that the greatest gift that life has to offer is the gift that surpasses understanding, is the gift that puts one in relation to the mystery of being. And the more open the heart is, the more the mystery can be plumbed. It is a mystery that perpetually confounds the understanding. It is a mystery that cannot be made the subject of any wisdom. We would say that wisdom has its place. We would say that sound judgment is never to be despised. But if judgment is given full and sole sway, that is precisely the first step on the path to a mode of service which contracts itself merely to the parameters of the serving self. That self seeks to serve not solely, it thus contract itself must be the blossom that opens itself in love to the creation, and must therefore be foolish precisely to that extent. We are happy to have been able to address the query which we feel is central to the experience each of you enjoys at this time in your life pattern. The concept of love rising in ascendancy over the mundane matters of your earthly world is that which now takes flight around your weary world in the hearts and minds of those that have taken time to think with more than the mind, but with the mind of the heart, shall we say. It is a time of graduation upon your planet. Those who now pass through the doors of death are offered the steps of light to measure their success at making this choice toward the path of love and service to others, or love and service to self. Few there are who take the latter path. Unfortunately, we find that the positive path also has far less than we have hoped, for it has been some time that the Confederation of Planets in the service of the one infinite Creator have been attempting to seed the concept of love within those hearts which are open to it. The gardens upon your planet are few, yet there are places upon your planet's surface that, when seen in the metaphysical realm, shine with the brilliance of love that has been let loose and shines freely from each open heart. Question. Quote, before I ask your query and also ask that we pass on this message to you, he writes in personal gratitude, saying that we will never find the right words to say enough how grateful he is to Ra and those of Quo and Carla for their service, for the information that they have made available to us. I will move on to the first follow-up. Ra describes a rate of 51% service to others and 95% service to self, which needs to be achieved in order to graduate from third density illusion. I understand that one's overall violet ray is that which is being measured. But what does the 51% mean? Is it the quantity of intentions and feelings and thoughts and words and deeds? Is it the amount of time one spends oriented towards service to others? Or is it the strength of the service to others behind intentions and thoughts and deeds? What does the 51% mean? I am Quo and am aware of your query, my brother. Before we address the query, may we thank the one known as N for his kind comments, and may we note that this entity is one which we spoke in suggesting that there are those around this planetary surface which indeed open their hearts in shining love to others. You may look at each mind-body-spirit complex within the third density illusion as a source of energy. Energies that are expended either in service to others or in service to self. If you could look at the metaphysical nature of the metaphysical expenditure of energies by each entity, this would provide you with a measure, shall we say, of the efficiency of the energy expenditures, even into the areas of the quantification of percentages. The entity who is able to express 51% of its energies by intention in its life pattern then will find itself available for the harvest in the positive sense. The entity who expends 95% of its energies in directing that love quality to the self will find itself in the opportunity to be harvested in the negative sense, where the negative entity will find it is much more necessary to be consciously aware of each expenditure of energy, for it is much more difficult to contact intelligent infinity using the lower chakras, red through yellow, leaving out the green, and making contact with intelligent infinity by communicating through the blue chakra and the indigo chakra. Thus, requirements for the negatively oriented entity is somewhat higher, shall we say, for it travels the path of that which is not the path of separation. This is a viable path to the one creator, but requires a greater degree of accuracy in the expenditure of energy. Is there a further query, my brother? Would you say that it's fair to say that one can achieve the 51% measure by simply being kind, compassionate, and oriented towards concern and care for other people? I am and am aware of your query, my brother, and to simply do this would indeed meet the requirements, but we find that such a simple expression of kindness and love is difficult to find upon your planetary service. Gary then asks, this morning I was wondering if the prayers and thoughts of compassion sent were reaching the wounded and also the departed ones. When you know that somebody is praying for you, you can feel the action of the prayer, but when you are not aware of the fact, then what happens? Can some comfort be perceived? I only hope so. I wanted to help the deceased victims find their way to light and love. This is after a attack in Brussels at the time of this channeling, where there was an explosion. Quo says, I am unaware of your query, my brother, and of the query known to the one known as Misha. We find that the entities that are sending the love and the light to those who have deceased from the action of the terrorists are in what you might call a state of shock. The loving energies that are surrounding them are available to them as a kind of pool or resource that can be used by these entities. We find that there are guides for each entity that await the entity's ability to determine what has occurred in their life pattern, for when the death occurs in such a sudden fashion, there is the disorientation of the mind-body-spirit complex that requires a certain amount of healing. Those entities upon the inner planes of your planetary surface in charge of such are tending to these entities at this time. Those of the ones known as Ra have, in the past, as has been spoken in the Law of One Material, attended to such entities as were passing through the doors of death due to the dropping of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and were able to offer to these entities the reintegration of the mind-body-spirit complex. Thus, these entities of Ra and other entities as well offered themselves at this time in service to those who passed through the death's doors at the attack on Brussels at the previous mention. Gary says, yes, there is, quote, thank you so much. This one comes from our friend L, who writes, I'm thinking of the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This got me thinking, many of the channelings say if our intentions are pure, then there really isn't much to worry about. So all of us New Age type folks doing all we can with our best intentions and still witnessing supposed failure about us. I'm wondering if you could speak to that phrase and its validity. I am and am aware of your query, my brother. We find that this instrument itself has wondered about that query, for it is aware that the intention is that which is the foundation of each action. We would suggest that the statement itself, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, is an inaccurate estimation of what actually occurs within your third density illusion when entities offer themselves in service to another, and that service seems to go awry, and the one receiving the service is, by receiving the service, finding itself in a situation that is perhaps worse than the one in which it was in before the intention was offered to assist. The shortness of perception here is that which is the problem. The viewpoint must be somewhat wider in order to see that the entity receiving the attention of service from another may find itself in what seems to be a worse situation. There must be the recognition that each situation teaches that which is needed by the entities within the situation. Thus, the desire of most third-density entities to be within a comfortable situation is that which biases most entities when they see another entity in a situation in which they would not choose themselves to be. But if they would remain with that entity long enough to see the lessons learned within that situation, they would see the value of that situation. Thus, the road to hell is that which is a short road. The road to the heaven worlds is that which passes through the road to hell. In another channeling delivered on September 17th of 95, they ask, what part does wisdom play in our lives as seekers of truth, attempting to learn compassion, forgiveness, and mercy? Is there anything we can do to inform our actions with wisdom? What is wisdom in this density? Carla channeling says, we are those of Quo, and we greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. It is such a blessing for us to be called to address your circle. We thank you and assure you that the honor is much prized and appreciated by us. We have come to feel a kinship with those of this group, and this privilege rests in our hearts. We might begin by saying that there is a sense in which wisdom is a term describing an illusion within your density, for the concept of wisdom implies that there is a right or correct way of thinking or acting. And while in things of your third density illusion, there are a nearly endless supply of right or correct answers within the spiritual search, within the world, which is walked within the heart and within the mind by those who seek to accelerate the rate of their spiritual evolution. There is often no correct solution to a perceived situation or difficulty. As this instrument was saying earlier, the tendency of the rational mind to search for a correct solution and to think in terms of solutions can sometimes lead the seeker astray. Let us look, if you will, at the wisdom of your world. Its structure, through your recorded history, has been that logical structure which so arranges and subdivides the multitudinous phenomena absorbable in daily life in such a way that the mind may contain a working picture, if you will, of the contents of the environment around the thinker. Wisdom is seen to be a structure of logic and thought into which one may place the various learnings and systems of learning that comprise the well-rounded mental atmosphere. One might almost think of wisdom as the housekeeper of the house of light, each kind of thought and area of endeavor having its own room, shelf, or closet. The wise man can be seen to be one whose house stands before the blast of random circumstances, able to take new information and fit that within the logical structure which has these thoughts in that room, those thoughts in the other. In the eyes of your world, then, the wiser man is he who, when faced with new and challenging information, is able to restructure, or shall we say remodel, the house of thought so that the new furniture fits with the old. It is, however, the case that, wise as the wisdom of your world is, it reaches to the limits of the spiritual walk and not beyond them. We wish, however, to make a point of saying that a seeker whose worldly house of logic and thought is untended and unkempt shall have unnecessary difficulties in the spiritual seeking. Perhaps the wisdom of the world is greatly limited. But the physical being that carries your consciousness around is well served by one who takes the time and energy to develop the worldly kind of wisdom, which is mostly the application of logical analysis to the constant stream of incoming sense impressions that gives that hungry mind fodder to eat. The seeker whose house is in order, then, has the inner sense of freedom to address that spiritual walk which is so dear and so necessary to those who have awakened to that hunger for truth that marks the seeker in a metaphysical sense. We see the sadness and the reluctance that this instrument feels when it gazes upon the turning of the season from warmth to cold, and we would compare the wisdom of the world to the experience of the physical vehicle in summer. The world invades and encroaches upon the self. It curls about one. There's a feeling of abundance and richness, and as this instrument would say, the living is easy. Hard as the decisions the world asks of you are in a worldly sense, they are of great comfort and ease compared to the often chilly choices and challenges facing the metaphysical seeker, for in the world of spirit, there is a far colder kind of wisdom. It is the wisdom of one who gazes upon illusion and is able to see through the illusion to the mystery. Thusly, the spiritual wise man is first the world's fool. That ability to gaze at the richness and fullness of life and see its vanity as infinite is that ability which reaches into the beginnings of spiritual wisdom. Perhaps each is familiar with the concept of the sight which sees that which is becoming that which is not, and finally becoming again that which is yet known more fully, and will be able to move up a step or two each time the realization turns itself inside out and then reverts once again. Let us look at the reflection of the wisdom of the Spirit. One reflection is the activity chosen by the seeker, known as inner listening, practicing the presence of the one infinite creator, meditation or prayer. One may see that an entity has laid claim to wisdom as that one surrenders the mind that is so capable in the worldly sense and takes up instead the silent mystery that speaks the one great original thought. There is a reflection of wisdom in one who opens the hand and releases some necessity, some urgency, letting it go, releasing worry and concern, placing the feet solidly in the mid-air of faith alone. One may see the reflection of wisdom in the one who leaves the presence of good times and good company in order to be of service to one who is lost and has asked for aid. One may see the reflection of wisdom shining from the face of one who is laying hold of some infinite virtue, who stands unafraid and submits to whatever the world wishes to do, regardless of the inconvenience of the outcome. One may see the reflection of wisdom in one who lays down the life for the cause of another. The key to spiritual wisdom is a kind of seeing. Now, the physical sight is beautifully created and gives to a seeker windows upon an incredible and amazing physical universe, full of beauty and rhythms and perfect harmony. Each seeker has nascent, often inchoate inner vision as well. One may think of this faculty as the eyes of the spiritual body. These eyes, too, are wonderfully created, yet they lie dormant within the physical illusion until the seeker awakes to the clarion call of the spiritual walk. Then it is as if the worldly self has birthed the spirit within, and as with all infants, that eyesight of the inner spiritual entity is unfocused, untaught, and very, very limited in its ability to see. As the seeker begins to gain experience, it discovers that the worldly sight, excellent as it is for the things of the physical universe, can tell lies if the physical sight is taken to the equal spiritual sight as well. The spiritual self will look at the situation where all the things of the world are had in plenty and be able to see those imbalances, lacks, and hungers that lie just below the surface of the illusion and that greatly change the truth that is seen. The spiritual self sees the riches of the world as poverty and sees the naked and vulnerable spirit in all its poverty as riches. To the spiritual eye, the concepts such as death, limitation, emergency, catastrophe, fear, and terror are not necessarily bad things. The riches for the spiritual self lie in every circumstance, those perceived as negative perhaps more than those perceived as positive by the physical self. Strictly speaking, wisdom is a null word within third density. If it is striven for, the result is greater and greater ability to see the truth of the physical existence. That is, the man counted as wise is the one who seems to see most clearly. Yet we say to you that the utmost clarity of awareness of an entity's true motives and so forth is still that which contain great distortion. In a non-relative sense, we may say that wisdom is to be embodied rather than contained within the mind. A great amount of work is done within the density of wisdom to improve the spiritual eyesight. Foreshadowings of this density of wisdom fall across the seeker's path in third density daily, and the seeker does well to give a good effort to striving to attain a measure of wisdom, even though that effort is doomed to certain failure, because the desire to seek wisdom in itself contains the wisdom of third density. If you burn to be truly wise, then focus upon that burning, that yearning desire. Seek to penetrate the mystery. Ache and reach for the heart of truth. The result is that to the extent you have purified the desire, you have embodied wisdom such as it can be in your present illusion. The prelude to spiritual wisdom is surrender. When we greet you in love and light, we greet you in love or compassion and light or wisdom. Wisdom is concerned with the structure that tells its story within your awareness in such a way that you are best equipped to consider the mystery in all its stunning totality. If you seek to be spiritually wise, then know that love and light, compassion and wisdom are the substance and form of the Creator and the Creator's universe. Wisdom builds the house of thought within which one may think upon the mystery. Love is the only solitary quality that can fill that form and create out of emptiness all that there is in its rejoicing, exulting splendor. This is a stunning universe. This is an amazing mystery. We cannot express our excitement and our joy at the simple contemplation of the Creator. And beyond all seeking for light and knowledge, there lies the golden, living, powerful, and ever penetrating fact of love. Your form is spun of light, your nature of love. At this time, we would ask if we may speak to any further queries which those present may have for us. It's inaudible and it says, I am Ko, and my brother, we grasp that your query is clear, yet we would suggest that there are mysteries aplenty and that each entity will find the appropriate response to all catalysts. I am Quo and am again with this instrument. Is there any further query? No, Quo, thank you. I am Quo, and it is our great honor and privilege to share with you the catalyst of words, of thoughts, of desires, and of the path of the seeker. Is there another query at this time? It's inaudible. I am Quo and I'm aware of your query. The one known as chocolate bar, as all things in this illusion, has utilized its catalyst well, and now approaches the removing of the garment of this incarnational experience, the physical vehicle which begins to deteriorate and to indicate to all who observe the ending of the incarnation. The giving of love to this entity and the rejoicing in its presence is that which is always most helpful, whether the entity chooses to remain or to go further upon its path. Note, I believe that chocolate bar is their pet, and they're talking about their pet who is dying. The next question is inaudible, but I believe they're asking if their pet, who I believe is a dog, is able to move to third density. Quo says, I am Quo, and we are aware of your query, my sister, and may speak in the affirmative in that this entity has, through its many years of devotion to those about it, been able to gain that ability to give and to receive love in a manner that will allow it to choose whether it shall go forward into the third density experience or whether it shall return once again as a second density being so that it might dwell with those with whom it now shares its incarnational experience. Carla then asks, is it possible to answer whether Chocolate Bar is the reincarnation of Jim's dog, Trixie, from his childhood? I am Quo and am aware of your query, my sister. We find that it's best, in our opinion, to leave this possibility as a possibility. Is there any further query? Carla says no. I am Quo and we thank you, my sister. Is there another query? I am Quo and we feel that we have spoken to those concerns which those present have offered to us. And we are most grateful for this opportunity to be with each of you, and we further affirm to each that we are with you at any time at which you request our presence. We walk with light and gladsome feet and move where you are called, rejoicing at each calling and each journey of movement, and we thank those present for offering us the possibility of service. Though we are never certain of service, we are always certain of the desire to serve, and it is with a whole heart that we may answer your call. At this time, we shall take our leave of this instrument and this group, rejoicing in the presence of each, feeling great joy for the one who shines forth in all. We are known to you as those of Quo. Adonai, my friends. Adonai. I found this one very interesting, and it's something that I've considered often. Obviously, if you have followed my channel and listened to my videos, you can see that I am constantly seeking knowledge. It is a distortion in my own personality that I became aware of, and I've gone through a whole journey of discovering previous incarnations and a greater understanding of why I am this way. From the very moment I was born, I have always found that I had a distortion towards seeking of knowledge in an unusually intense way that is not of the norm of those around me. And I've had some amazing discoveries in meditation that in previous existences, that's what I did. And I went around gathering information. And some starseeds, that's what they do, is they go around gathering information on a planet. Even if you don't awaken, you can program yourself in such a way that you expose yourself to a huge amount of information, and this information is used. All your memories and knowledge are used. So I was constantly reading stuff that was completely unrelated to my life. Politics in Thailand, the structures of India, looking at weird histories in Nepal, constantly just getting information like some sort of computer. And even fictional books were important. Reading hundreds and hundreds of fictional books on a variety of different topics, unrelated. And so it was just a part of me that I believe was pre-programmed into this incarnation. It's just one of the aspects of my character. I wish I could turn it off. It is just a fundamental part of me. I'm constantly seeking out new information. I have a way of researching things where if I decide I want to research a topic, I will read everything on that topic. And as we move into this new information society, that's a lot harder than it used to be. I used to be able to go to the library and get a few magazines, and I could read everything that's ever been written on a topic. I learned that when I was in debate in high school and college. But there's a point in spirituality where you're not ever going to get all the knowledge that you need. You can read the Bible and every other biblical interpretation. You can read every religious document in the world. You can read all the histories, the secret documents. You can find the secret societies, the Rosicrucians, all of them. And you can read all those documents and you still will never truly know. There's so much contradictory information. There's so much just stuff that's been written, and so much of it contradicts or doesn't contradict. And the more you read, you start to see a fundamental idea that grows from it, that allows me to become more spiritual, that gives me things to test, things to do, greater understandings, gives me greater confidence. By reading a certain amount, you get a greater belief system in place. But there is a point that goes beyond wisdom where you'll never know enough. You'll never have the knowing that you need. And it's a letting go. It's a letting go. And that's where love comes in. There's this little bridge between wisdom and love, and they are two sides of the same coin. And the lessons I've learned from love go far beyond all the books I've ever read, all the knowledge that I believe that I have. Knowing most of it is irrelevant in relation to the lessons I've learned from love. And these two things, the fifth density, I believe, is the density of love and wisdom. This is the density of love and understanding. Fourth density is. So essentially, I theorize that when you move from fourth to fifth density, you just constantly create a greater knowing. We are accessing a more complicated form of light, a light photon that is more dense. Thus, it's called fourth density. This light photon you can see all around us. We can see things becoming more and more complex. So as we become aware of this greater complexity, we have a greater knowledge and knowing, and we may go down paths. The knowledge is unimportant. Of course, I want you to listen to my podcast for knowledge. I want to give you all the knowledge that I have. But always realize it always goes beyond knowledge. You'll never know enough. You'll never get the final secret that you need. It will only be in you acting out what you need, in taking that step, in taking that movement that is the cause of the reactions that you want in your world. We only know an absolutely insignificant amount about this universe. Imagine 0.000000001% of what we could actually know about the physics of this universe, about the nature of it, the complexities of it. There are structures all over the universe that are beyond fascinating, and there are things in natures of this universe that we haven't even come close to comprehending. The idea of galactic movement, galactic scale movements by intelligent energy. These things are being explored on the higher densities, and as we continue to move, we get greater understanding. There's going to be a point where we can actually be in multiple awarenesses at the same time, and it's just natural for us to do that. But all of this is a slow step, and the first step really is love. And when we open ourselves to love, we create this bridge, and this bridge of love will allow a greater amount of wisdom. And love and wisdom is two things on the same coin. And I'd love to get your opinions on the nature of love and wisdom as we shift to this higher level of reality, as we go through this reality revolution. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.